All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and the Pickle Krug Show on a beautiful day in Santa Clara. The 49ers coaches will speak today. No practice today for the players off day, but we'll get a chance to visit with some of the 49ers assistant coaches down here. And, you know, some of the assistant coaches are some of the best guys to talk to. So I'm really looking forward to getting a chance to talk to a number of the assistant coaches about some of the players on this roster and some of the competitions that we're starting to see down here in training camp. All right, today let's do a video on the 4 really good 49er players who may not make the final 53-man roster. And, you know, it's funny. It's like all these guys, when I throw out these 4 names, I think you're all going to push back and say, really? That guy's not going to make the roster? What? But the Niners have, you know, it's a 90-man camp roster. They got to cut it down to 53, and special teams is a factor, contract is a factor, versatility is a factor. Sometimes players get caught up in a numbers game where there's just too many players at one position. Injuries and trades could come into the mix as well. But just taking a look at practice thus far, I got 4 names here that I think are all going to surprise you guys that for one reason or another may wind up not being on the final 53-man roster. All right, let's go down the list. One guy who I think everybody assumes is going to be on this roster but really may not make it is Oren Burks. Oren Burks is a terrific player. The Niners signed him as a special teams linebacker. You can make a case that he's a guy that is not just a special teamer, that he's a special teamer and he can also play from scrimmage. I mean, Burks is really, really nice. He's a smart player. He's a good player. But, you know, look at the Niner linebacking core. I'm projecting they're going to keep 6. But they might wind up keeping 5. And Burks might be the odd man out. Fred Warner, superstar, right? Fred's going nowhere. He's a star player, Pro Bowler, All-Pro, maybe the best inside backer in the game. So you start with Fred. Then you got Dre Greenlaw. Greenlaw is a spectacular hitter, one of the NFL's top 100 players. I think NFL Network ranked him like 72 or 73 or whatever it was. Greenlaw's great. Greenlaw's terrific against the run. He's a tone setter. Everybody knows Greenlaw's going to be on this football team. So Warner and Greenlaw are your starters. Who's going to be that third starter? Well, Marcelino McCrary-Ball is looking like a great potential player. Now, I'm going to do a whole other video on McCrary-Ball as well. But McCrary-Ball is explosive, fast. He stands out on the football field. He's better in coverage than he used to be. He's a blitzer. You know, he was used in that husky position at Indiana, which is like kind of a safety / linebacker. The Niners, you know, he went there as a nickel player and then manned that husky position in their 4-2-5. And then the Niners paid him the most of any linebacker and of any undrafted free agent last year. And he came here, spent the entire year on the practice squad. I even asked him last year, I said, Marcelino, why did you come here? You know? And he said, hey, look, Aziz and Greenlaw and Warner, these guys are dogs. Johnny Holland is a great linebacker coach. And I wanted to challenge myself to be coached by the best and to play with the best. So he redshirted all of last year with an eye on this season. And in the off season, he's bulked up. He's about 200 and my guess is about, he was listed at 214 last year. He probably was closer to 220. I think he's probably around between 220 and 225 right now. And he is flying all over the field. He's making plays. He's shooting gaps. He's getting it done as a blitzer. He's snuffing out running backs and wide receivers in the flat. His play speed is noticeable. This is a guy who had an interception against Green Bay last year in the preseason and a 50-some-odd yard return after making the pick. Marcelino is a phenomenal athlete and maybe a guy who could become a Pro Bowl linebacker in my estimation. So you got Warner, you got Greenlaw, you got Marcelino. The last couple days, D. Winters has started to get it revved up, and Winters is a revelation. I mean, this guy was incredibly productive at TCU. If you saw the national semi against Michigan, he's shooting gaps, he's going low, he's making plays on the other side of the line of scrimmage. For a team that likes to blitz their linebackers, D. Winters is exactly what the doctor ordered. So I think there's a very good chance that Winters is going to wind up making this roster. Then you've got Jalen Graham, and Jalen Graham has been phenomenal in really throughout the OTAs, the mini camp. He's instinctive, he's fast, he's making plays all over the field. Jalen Graham is a really, really solid linebacker who's probably going to be an NFL starter at some point. And so that's four. I mean, that's Warner, Greenlaw, Marcelino, Winters, and Graham. That's actually five. I think they'll probably keep six. So it really could come down to Oren Burks, Curtis Robinson, and Demetrius Flannigan-Fowles for one spot. And that's what kind of depth the Niners have at linebacker right now. Now, when you look at their salaries, Burks makes the most. So if you're looking for any kind of a cap saving situation, you may go with Curtis Robinson over Burks and Flannigan-Fowles. We've also watched Curtis Robinson, who is a really good player at Stanford, make a number of plays already in this camp. I mean, to me, Robinson looks spectacular. I also think there's possibilities that a team like the Raiders may come to the 49ers, especially after the two teams practice this week, and say, you know what, we'd like to trade a 2024 draft choice for Oren Burks, or maybe even Demetrius Flannigan-Fowles, or maybe both. I mean, these guys are, I would say they're on the bubble as far as making the Niners, but they could start for other teams. I mean, Oren Burks could be a starting strong side linebacker with the Raiders. So his value in the league is high. The Niners have a numbers issue at linebacker. They got two stars, and they got three really great young linebackers in D. Winters, Jalen Graham, and Marcelino. And I just think that, between Burks and Curtis Robinson and Demetrius Flannigan-Fowles, most likely only one of those guys is going to wind up making this team. And my guess is it will be Curtis Robinson. Robinson is healthy. He looks good on special teams. He's making plays. He had a forced fumble the other day. Really smart player. And I could see Flannigan-Fowles and or Burks being traded. They're probably too good to be cut. And all the guys that we're going to talk about in this video that I think may not make the final 53 are probably too good to be cut, but they could be traded. And when you look at that numbers game, I think the Niners are going with Warner, Greenlaw, McCrary Ball, Winters, Jalen Graham, and just one of those special teams backers between Burks, Robinson, and Flannigan-Fowles. And I think it's probably going to be Robinson. And I think Burks is a guy that's got real value around the league. So first guy that may not make the 49ers 53-man roster in this video, Oren Burks. All right, let's jump to the other side of the football. Running back is another position where the Niners are loaded. And I can't see them going with more than 5, maybe 6. You got Christian McCaffrey, who's a superstar. Elijah Mitchell, who's a very dependable finishing back who never fumbles. He has 4.3 speed, great instincts. He's a proven player. He's looked fast in this camp. I can't see Elijah Mitchell not making the team. So that's 2. Juszczyk's going to be there. That's 3. He's your Pro Bowl fullback. So then it comes down to J.P. Mason. And I think Mason is a major talent. He's 230 pounds. He runs with force. Yeah, he's had a couple fumbles, but J.P. Mason has got a lot of talent. He could be a very, very good NFL running back. So I think he gets the 4th spot. And then it comes down to maybe one spot. And, Ty Davis Price has looked really good. John Lynch said he was here at 6 o'clock in the morning the other day. Chris Forster says he's a really hard worker. Ty Davis Price could be a feature back on other teams. And I just think that you've also got Kalen Laburn, the undrafted free agent out of Marshall, who's a tremendous back with powerful lower body, former 5-star recruit in high school who's looked really good. You got Ronald Awatt, who can really catch the football out of the backfield. And the guy who is starting to come on, who may wind up making this team, is Jack Coletto, the fullback from Oregon State, who's, I could see Coletto making this team. He's versatile. He's smart. The Niners competed with Denver and Dallas and a couple other teams to get him here. I think next year there's a very good chance that Coletto could inherit Kyle Juszczyk's position. He's an mechanical engineering major. He's really, really smart. Caught a pass yesterday from Trey Lance on the goal line. And Coletto is a valuable special teamer. And, you've got CMC and Mitchell and Mason, and you got Laburn there as well, and Juszczyk is a fullback. If the Niners opt to go with a special teamer over a running back, that could make Ty Davis Price on the bubble. So I think Ty Davis Price needs a huge preseason, and I think there's a chance he gets caught up in a numbers game. Once again, too good of a player to cut, but I could see him traded to a team that loses a running back and thinks that he's a feature back. So Ty Davis Price is number 2 on the players who may not make the 49er 53-man roster. All right, let's go to tight end. Cameron Latou was a 3rd-round pick by the 49ers, but he's really raw. And the other day he had a pass in the flat where he just put out one hand and the ball fell to the ground. I mean, you got to get both hands out there. There was really no excuse for that. George Kittle is going to be your number 1 tight end. They also have the veterans that they really like in Charlie Warner and Ross Dwelly. To this point, I would say Braden Willis has made more plays in the passing game, and he's kind of known as a tenacious blocker. The Niners gave him that gold helmet designation in the draft. I think there's a very good chance the Niners keep only 3 tight ends, maybe 4, but they love Dwelly. Warner's kind of a fixture. Braden Willis looks like the better of the 2. I could see Cameron Latou being traded and or cut. I know he was a 3rd-round pick, but there's nobody's on scholarship here, and he's guaranteed nothing. And even though there's a lot to like about Latou, if it comes right down to who can help the team the most today, I think there's a chance that Warner and Willis and Dwelly, if there's even 4 tight ends, I think those guys could be the guys, behind Kittle. If there's 3, maybe Dwelly gets cut, but I could see them go with Kittle and Warner and Willis, or Kittle and Dwelly and Willis. I think there's a chance that Cameron Latou either gets traded or cut, even though he was a 3rd-round draft choice. Now, he's got a lot of upside. He's raw. He's played very little football at tight end. But that's the question. Will they carry a guy who doesn't have a big special teams role and is a little inconsistent and a little bit more of a developmental player? It's rare that teams cut their 3rd-round draft choices, but I'm telling you, he's a raw prospect. I don't know how much he can contribute right away on special teams. He may get caught up in a numbers game if the Niners go with 3 tight ends. And it's not a lock that Cameron Latou is on this 53-man roster. So he's the 3rd really good player that may not make the 53. The 4th one nobody's going to want to hear, but it's Trey Lance. If the Niners decide they want to go with Brock Purdy as their 1, Sam Darnold as their 2, it's going to be a tough situation for Trey Lance. Now, I wouldn't cut him. I'd go with Purdy, Darnold, and Lance and either cut or trade Brandon Allen. But the question is, would the Niners go with 4 quarterbacks? I don't think, they're John Lynch said they may go with 4 quarterbacks in the building, but they probably wouldn't go with 4 on the 53-man roster. None of these 4 quarterbacks are going to make it through waivers, so none of them are candidates for the practice squad. The question is this: will the 49ers carry a $9 million price tag on their number 3 quarterback in Trey Lance to continue the development as quarterback 3, or will they prioritize 2024 and their cap situation down the road? So an awful lot of speculation about this. Mike Silver is speculating. Rich Eisen is speculating. Some of these guys are suggesting that Trey Lance may actually be traded or cut. I can't see it happening. I can't see them moving on from Trey Lance. I think that he's going to be on this team. But don't be shocked at the cut down if Trey Lance is either traded to another team and the Niners go with Purdy, Darnold, and Allen, or, I hate to say it, would they cut Trey Lance and try to use that money, the extra money that they have next year? They're not going to pay him next year to be a backup quarterback at $17 million. So how do they view Trey Lance? And that's really one of the biggest questions. It is the biggest question as the cut down approaches. Once again, if it's up to me, I'm going Purdy, Darnold, and Lance, and just, I'll take a $14 million or $15 million quarterback room and be perfectly satisfied with it and just continue to develop Trey Lance. But how the Niners play this is going to be really interesting. What are the cap ramifications? Is there a trade market for Trey? Do they keep him on the roster at the beginning of the season and look for another quarterback to maybe go down and see if there's a team that wants to give them a 3rd-round pick? Talk is they've been offered a 5th-round pick for Trey. What is going to happen at the quarterback spot? It's the biggest question in this camp. So there you go. The 4 really good players who may not be on the 49ers' final 53-man roster: Oren Burks, Ty Davis-Price, Cameron Latou, and sadly, Trey Lance. All right, thank you to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of The Krug Show. Thanks to all you guys for supporting The Krug Show on YouTube.